This is the video where we discuss what HouseFresh did to cause this traumatic injury or drama that we are talking about. And not only are we going to discover what they actually did to cause this, but we're also going to talk about how they could have done it better to not get into this position.
So I think this will be very useful and educational as we go in it. I fully expect at the end of this, people will really understand and have a different viewpoint or that they can choose to see through when they're looking at not just this content, but their own.
One thing even more crystal clear, we focused on a particular keyword. That keyword was hyper-focused within the HouseFresh article. We did not pick this keyword. And then we chose to hold it up to the standard within their own article, which is, did Google take that keyword away from them, or did they cause the problems themselves? And I know within the comment section, some of you had a problem with me saying that they caused this themselves. So now we're just going to show you and prove it to you.
These are the 5 that I focused on to look at, since Google was interchanging them a lot or changing them around or getting them mixed up with each other. And even in the last video, there was this other URL that started to make its way in, pet allergy air purifiers. But it turns out all of these pages were published on the site in June 2021. Then I looked at, again, this part was with SEMrush data. When did they first rank for any term, at least in terms of what SEMrush could see? And so the first time that the page that they gave up on the term best air purifier for pets was January 2022. So it took from January 2021 until it was the next year before it ranked for the term that they were going for. So what I did was, for each of these 5 pages, I went to a site called topicalrelevance.com and put in the targeted keyword, which I basically used as the URL slug. So air purifiers for pet odor was one grouping. Pet allergy air purifiers was another. Air purifiers for cat allergies, air purifier for vaping, and air purifier for Vox. So I pulled all of those individually, put these in a spreadsheet, dividing them by the semantic keywords. So it's almost the keyword variant plus the related keywords, and then by the entities. And entities, whether or not they would pull up a Wikipedia page or not. And then I sent this spreadsheet over to Marie.
So we took the semantic keywords or the keywords that they were targeting within the URLs. You can see the keywords on the outer edge. Those are unique to that particular keyword that was within that URL. If you take a look at all of the words that are on the inside and all of the ones in the middle with all the different bubbles and colors, all of those are not unique. All are in common with the keyword that they were targeting across 5 different URLs.
So Marie, the things that are shared, the keywords across those 5 pages in the center where it looks like a little football.
Yes.
Each page would need, for Google to understand that it was about that topic, they were going to need to have some reference to those words on the page. And we understand Google organizes information, so they probably know this topic before anybody first publishes. They've got plenty of documents on it. So there is some sort of mathematical structure to this topic, is what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I think partly what my eyes were drawn to was how many words they actually all shared, and wasn't much of a variance in between the keywords. And some of them had more of a variance than the others, but really most of the words, I think they had 44 of them out of all of them, were shared between some of the bubbles. And they're shared in some fashion.
Which is kind of, a way to express the fact that maybe what we're looking at is, at least in Google's eyes, 5 pages that would, or at least certainly 3 of them, were seriously like each other.
I mean, the visual really kind of shows you that the 5 pages that they were writing about really were similar topics in Google's eyes.
This doesn't look good.
It visually shows you how focusing on a keyword can easily get you into trouble if you're not focusing on topic.
What about the entities?
So these are the entities that go with each of the keywords of the URL that were pulled. So again, you can see the words on the outside of the bubbles. Those are unique, or would be unique to that particular keyword. And then all of the keywords in the middle, or all of the entities in the middle, share either with some of the bubbles or all of the bubbles, but they are shared entities within. From a topical standpoint, the focus of each of the articles were really very similar.
So they really didn't give a lot of light in between what they were going for. So I can imagine if I were Google, I would probably feel like this is somebody, if this was a person talking to me, it would be a lot of the same.
So I think HouseFresh was targeting the same topic over and over, assuming that they were targeting different keywords, however, not realizing how similar the articles actually were. I believe they were using the other pages to try and boost up their original page that they had wanted to rank for that main keyword that they originally landed like in 7th or 8th position, somewhere in there. I believe they were using topical pages or other pages written about their topic to boost that page.
Or they could just have been trying to target and get those individual keywords without sync.
Either way, they confused Google.
And a confused Google doesn't pick.
A confused Google is a bad thing to have, because if there are no tiebreakers or a way for Google to finally decide on one of your pages, you've created an enormous amount of confusion. And in that case, all of the pages lose. Now that we've pointed out there was an enormous amount of confusion going on with the URLs, and we all know this site was hit at the time of the helpful content update. Now, I know a lot of you are going to be running to your site and you're going to check to see if you have this exact thing going on, and you may or may not. What I need to point out here is this isn't the only thing that can take a site out or have a problem with the helpful content update. This is the one item that we chose to showcase within this video series. There are actually many things that can take down the site or suppress the site, or however you want to look at it, and you could still be dealing with the helpful content update but not have this exact problem.
And what you're really trying to say is if you don't see this, it doesn't mean you're okay, right?
Right. But let's talk about what they could have done or do better to not get into that situation.
Well, I know for myself, I would probably have looked to see, am I already ranking for that keyword?
That's actually one of my first steps as well. If you have access to Google Search Console or keyword tracking tools or whatever you want to use, just check to see if you're already ranking for that term. And if you are, where are you landing? Which page is it? And how can you change that page to then capture that particular keyword that you're interested in? How do you check?
Oh, I do the site operator before I log in and do anything, because I think, Google can tell you so much without having access to anything.
Another tiebreaker, or something that I also consider, is how much traffic is with that particular keyword. Is it a large amount? Is it a very small amount? Is it enough to really worry about and create an entire new page? I mean, are you talking about 8,000 monthly visitors in a month, or are we talking about 5 or 10? And all of those are decisions that I weigh before I create a new page.
It actually becomes a business cost, right? Writing a brand new separate piece of content. So they would just add a section, maybe if they wanted to address that particular search phrase, since it was related to the other, and then they could just use the existing page and just enhance it a little bit.
But you have to check before you start building more and more pages.
And what if you're not ranking for it yet? Because, we saw that they had published in June, but it didn't start ranking really until January.
Yeah, you have to know what you're writing about, what you've already written about, whether you do a search in Google or you do a search within your own website to pull up different topics. However you do it, you have to know what you've already written on and what you're writing on next. But then with all of that said, at the same time, I keep hearing from site owners, well, it used to work, or it worked back when, and they'll give me dates. And yes, it did work. And with HouseFresh, there's a time where where they were doing good and their charts were leading up in the right direction. And so they felt they were doing everything that you're supposed to be doing. But what we need to point out is Google is fluid. The algo changes, boundaries change. What was permitted or allowed can no longer be allowed next month or the following month, or even what we're doing right now may not be what we do next year. So we have to understand that Google is constantly changing. Our algo is constantly changing. What they want to see changes. And so just because you had success in the past, it doesn't mean you're going to have continued success in the future.
Google makes the rules. Google changes the rules. And you have to change with them, which is why you've been saying adapt or die.
Adapt or die. So we either learn how the rules are changing and we change with it, or we go get a job at Taco Bell.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. That's too much change, Marie. So the idea of not looking for the one thing and thinking if you found one thing and you fixed one thing, you may not see the improvement that you're expecting.
Right. And I can look at it from a different standpoint, which is just working on recovering sites. It has never been one thing to turn every single site around. It's always multiple things, and you're working within layers. So what might happen to one site, or the reason to take one site down, isn't always the same reason for the next site to go down. So a lot of us look for patterns, and for if this happened to one site, then it has to have happened to our site in the same way. And that is not what we're seeing.
And the other thing is the timing of it, right? If it goes down during a helpful content update, you can put that on your list that, we need to look for things, that potentially relate to that. But there could be other things.
Right. I mean, at the same exact moment, your hosting could have turned off.
Right.
Your domain could have expired. You could just switch to a new website, a new template, a new platform. Like there's a lot of things that can happen, or maybe code broke or whatever it is, a plugin updated and just screwed up the whole site. There's a lot of things. So it goes into a list. So how I begin when I work with clients is I start with an audit. These are the times or the things that I know that things went up and down. And then these are all the things that happened during that period. And then one by one, you begin to shoot them down. So if you take a look and you audit and there's nothing technical going on, they didn't switch platforms, all of these other things. So what we're doing is just ruling things out. There's no simple red button to push to say, oh, they don't have that one thing. Okay, this isn't helpful content update. There's no one thing to rule it in or to rule it out. So you're going section by section and you're ruling in and you're ruling out, and you never really know until you get to the end of the audit. And not only are we using the audit with tools, we're also using our SEO guts or stomachs to help us situate and figure out what is actually going on with this particular website. So there's a lot to consider. It's just never the one thing or the one shoe, one size fits all. That cannot be with the Google updates. There are layers. There are many things to consider. Were the majority of the keywords that they lost due to Google being mean and taking it away from them to give it to big brands, or did they continue to shoot their own selves in the foot? So I am not giving Google the green light to say that they are a saint, but what I'm saying is it's not only in just Google causing these problems. There were warning signs on the site that were ignored or simply not monitored. There were things that were going wrong before they got caught up in the helpful content update. Now, were some of the search intent changed? Probably so. Did some of the keywords, did they allow big brands to take over? Probably. But my question is, what is the percentage of that? And what is the percentage of they actually just shot themselves in the foot? So I'm not putting 100% of the blame on them, and I'm not putting 100% of the blame on Google. And now I want to sort it out for myself as to which was worse, their practices in SEO or Google preferring big brands and forums.
How many keywords are you looking at, Marie?
So they had, according to the third-party tools, they had over 9,000 keywords that they lost, went down, or tanked, or did something. So the red arrow is going down, over 9,000 keywords. I am shuffling through all of those to weed out keywords that don't make sense or don't matter, pinpointing money pages so that I can see, is this something that they can actually fix and continue to earn revenue on? Or is Google just pushing them completely out?
So if they need to fish or cut bait, basically.
Yeah, so now we have to make a business decision. Do we
Right.
continue to fish or do we cut bait and do something else? And honestly, I have not seen a site that Google was 100% to blame. I have not seen it. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but I haven't seen it. The sites that I've seen needed help with their SEO practices.
Me too.